Pausch Forum. This is an annual event we've held to honor the memory of Randy Pausch, one of his closest friends and colleagues here in the church was Emma Kelsey. She's going to talk a little bit about Randy and her reminiscences of him before we introduce our fifth Pausch lecturer. Emma.
Thank you. Randy was like a son to me. I first met him right after he joined the church, and he and Jay were ushering, and we were ushering with them at church, and we got to be very good friends. And then when their little boy was born premature, I happened to be working at McGee at that time, and so I would go up on my lunch hour and see them. And that's how we got to know each other. But then years passed, and we saw each other and socialized, but weren't really close until Randy was diagnosed. And when he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, I went up to him and I said, "You know, Randy, I would really like to be with you whenever you need me." And he said, "I need you every day." And he asked me to be with him when he was in the hospital and when he was in his worst times. And so that's what I did. And even toward the end, he would fly me down to Virginia to be with him. And it was a very important relationship for the two of us. And I still think about him every day. He formed my life to be what it is today, and I'm so pleased to be part of this ongoing honor for him. So I'm really looking forward to hearing Justin. So thank you all for being here.
So I thought we should take a minute before I introduce Jesse Schell and say a little bit about today's offering. Our first Randy Pausch lecture was Herb Zay, close colleague and friend, actually a former medical student of mine, 25 years ago. And we're going to pass the basket today to try and support pancreatic cancer research in memory of Randy and support Dr. Zay and his team's efforts. The second Pausch lecture was one that you may know, Jeff Zaslow, who along with Randy wrote the last lecture. He was a Wall Street Journal journalist who happened just by chance, the way he tells the story, of sitting in the back of the audience when Randy gave his famous last lecture. He sadly passed away going to do a speaking gig, I think, on an icy roadway in Michigan. Third was Don Marinelli, who had the audacious idea, along with Randy, heading on computer science and drama at CMU, that they ought to build a bridge between these two departments, and created the so-called Entertainment Technology Center. And I'm sure Jesse will tell us a little bit more about that. The fourth was actually a pair, Steve Seabolt, by Skype, if I recall, and Ralph Latuccio, both of whom had important starts working with Randy and his colleagues. And so we're delighted today to have Jesse Schell with us. Jesse is not a Unitarian, but I'm talking with him about his background. He sounds like a Unitarian to me. He revealed that he is married. He has a 14-year-old daughter, and he got his undergraduate degree at Rensselaer Institute of Technology. That's right.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Polytechnic Institute.
Right, which I know well because I was accepted into the 6-year med program there, which sits in Troy, New York, up above Albany. He came down to CMU to get a master's and had spent a fair amount of time juggling and doing a number of other creative arts before he really cut his teeth on some of the hard technology with IBM, as I understand it.
Oh, yeah.
And then went on to create what is arguably the single most successful gaming company in the state of Pennsylvania, Schell Games. I don't know. I know, it's true, and has really sort of made games that are accessible for children, that are family friendly. And for those of you who don't have children or grandchildren, you can see that many of us have been supplanted by these games. So we're hoping that he is bringing good influence to them as well as to us. He's been widely recognized. Some of the awards that he's got are listed in the handout today, but he was he got awards from Computer Gaming World, Webby Award for Parents' Choice Foundation, Children's Software Review, Wired Kids, Webby Awards. He was the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, one of the top 100 young innovators by MIT's Technology Review. He served as Director and Chairman of the International Game Developers Association, and he's designed and had great fun, as best I can tell, working with Disney, trying to identify and develop some of their theme parks. So it is a great pleasure. Please give a warm welcome to Jesse Schell.
Well, thanks, everybody. It's nice to be here. I speak a lot. I speak to students. I often speak at gaming conferences and all manner of things. But no one has ever really asked me to speak about my relationship with Randy, and so it was very appealing to me, the idea of being able to talk about that a little bit, especially to a group of people who know him somewhat and are interested in that as a subject. I guess I want to lead off. I'm going to show you a little bit about the company that I run. We have just a little short film, and you'll see in a minute why I want you to see and understand about that. But seeing this kind of helps you understand sort of what I'm about.
Came to Pittsburgh in 2002 from Disney Imagineering to join the faculty at the Entertainment Technology Center at Carnegie Mellon University. Also in 2002, he founded Schell Games. Since then, we've grown from 5 employees to a full-service game design and development studio of over 100. But no matter how big we grow, we'll always be a place where amazing people can be their best creative selves. Engineers, artists, designers, and producers work together to create experiences ranging from mobile games to theme park attractions. This requires our teams to be very flexible and open to new ideas, technologies, and platforms. We've worked with amazing partners that share our passion for games and their ability to transform the player. Here we are now in our demo room. Schell Games is partnered with the Yale University Medical School for the iPad game Play Forward Elm City Stories. The goal of this game is to prevent HIV infection among ethnic minority adolescents. Players navigate their avatar through a series of real-world situations and experience the long-term impact of their everyday decisions. Race to the Beach is a location-based experience developed for SeaWorld. The experience is installed next to the sea turtle exhibits in Orlando and San Diego. The game allows families to come together, play, and learn about the secret world of turtles. Here, we have a suite of games we developed for Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood for the PBS Kids website. come to eat, drink, and be merry. One of the best things about working at Schell Games is getting to hang out with such fun and nice people. Our employees have sponsored clubs almost every single night, ranging from book clubs to movie clubs to board game nights to video game nights. Because most of our employees are not from Pittsburgh, we've developed a close-knit and very welcoming culture. Schell Games is located across the river from downtown Pittsburgh, one of America's most livable cities. Pittsburgh combines everything that's great about a big city with the friendliness of a small town. We have access to first-rate medical institutions, middle-class health care, and low cost of living. Thanks for stopping by.
Are you hiring?
There you go. Yeah, certainly we're always happy. So I wanted to show you that just to give you a sense of sort of Schell Games. I think I've done a lot of things, but getting Schell Games up and running and functioning properly and just sort of producing everything that it's producing is one of the things I'm absolutely most proud of, and none of it would be there if it wasn't for Randy. And so I want to tell you sort of the story of how I met Randy and the influence that he had on my life. So there's a picture of me. I was shorter then. But even when I was really, really young, I can remember being absolutely fascinated with games and entertainment, and also fascinated with technology. I remember kind of this educational toy robot that was advertised on television when I was very young. I could have been more than 4 years old, and I could not have been more fascinated with that than anything I'd ever been excited about. And over very much of my life, I've found myself pursuing those things. It's kind of funny, when you look back at what were you interested in when you were really young. I remember in first grade, I came home from school, and my mother said, "Have you figured out what you want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "Yes, I'm going to be a bus driver," because I'd never seen a school bus driver before. It was so cool driving a big bus around. And then in second grade, one day I'm home from school, and I followed the garbage truck home. And there's these two guys on the back of the truck, and they ride around hanging off the back of the truck. Amazing. And occasionally they stop, and they pick up whatever's there and put it into a machine that crushes it. And I came home, and I said, "Mom, I figured out what I want to be when I grow up." She said, "What? I'm going to be a garbage man!" And my parents were not, they weren't thrilled with bus driver, and I think they were slightly less thrilled with this as a life aspiration. In third grade, I became more practical. And I said, "Mom, what job makes the most money?" She says, "Well," she's a nurse, and she's like, "I guess probably a doctor, probably one of those jobs." I said, "Well, what about after that?" She said, "Well, probably lawyers." I said, "What about after that?" She said, "Well, I don't know, maybe professors at a big college or something." And I said, "Oh, well, what are some of the best colleges, Mom?" She said, "Well, I guess there's Yale and Harvard and I guess Princeton, And so then I had my ready answer. People would ask me, and I remember teachers at school asking kids, "What do you want to be?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to be a professor at Yale, maybe Harvard or Princeton." Anyway, it's funny watching these, how you watch yourself change. But the biggest change for me was when I was about 10 years old. That's when home computers started to happen. And that was a whole world kind of opening up for me. It was a while before I ended up getting my own computer, but I would go to friends' houses who had a computer and learn how to program it. I would go to the mall where they had them on display and spend the afternoon trying to learn all the different types of things that you could do. And I started making my own computer games when I was maybe 12 or 13, just because I was so fascinated with it. And that really became something I was incredibly interested in. And here's a picture from me when I'm 17 here. So I started growing up in New Jersey. I ended up moving to Massachusetts. And this was a very big day. This was at our school. They had the Minister of Education for the Netherlands was coming to our school, because our school had a lot of computers for 1987. It was a surprising amount of computers. And they wanted to see, what does it mean when computers are in the school? And my teacher came to me and said, look, these guys are going to be coming, they want to see demonstrations. I want you to show them what you've been working on. I said, oh, my class projects, you want me to show those? And he said, no, I've seen you working on those other things. They look really cool, you should show those. And that was this big moment for me, because realizing that, wait, the stuff I was told to do is not the interesting part. The stuff that I pursued on my own is the interesting part. Also, check out my periodic table shirt. This is, that was definitely something. That was a 1980s nerd fashion. So I was very interested in computer science, but I was interested in something else too. Performing had been something I'd really been into, and I dabbled in comedy and magic and puppets and all kinds of things. But the thing that really took with me was juggling. And I ended up joining a few different juggling troupes and touring around. We're spinning the plate on the left side with the Jugglers Guild. And I did that kind of through high school, touring around in the summers with different circus troupes. And when it came time to go to college, I kind of had this big question. Am I going to pursue a kind of performing life? Or am I going to try and go for maybe something more in computer science or engineering? And having had a taste of the performing life, I really liked it. But I also decided, you know what, it's a little repetitive, and I do like 3 meals a day. So I think I'm going to pursue the computer science. So I ended up going to good old Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, engineering school up in Albany, founded 1824. And that meant I spent a lot of time in this building, which I know it's at a church. Well, it was a church. Rensselaer was, I guess, a monastery went out of business. I don't know how that happens. How does that happen? I don't really understand. But a monastery went out of business and sold the lands to Rensselaer in the early 1800s, and they kept the beautiful old stone church. And as times changed, the church became the computing center. And at the time I was there, it was rather eerie. You'd walk in, and you go in, and it's all big and imposing, being a church, and where there should be an altar, there are 2 large mainframes, like having some science fiction. And even to this day, here's a recent picture inside the church. And I know that there's, among the computer science department there's some level of belief that this helps instill the proper level of respect for one's subject. Anyway, so I had a great time doing computer science at Rensselaer. Working on games was something that I didn't even know about that as a career pathway. I just assumed, yes, I'm going to, I'll be developing software. I had a particular interest in artificial intelligence, but I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. When I graduated, I kind of looked around for different jobs, and I was able to find a job with these folks, Bell Communications Research. And one of the reasons I ended up working with them is everybody I interviewed with, I'd say, what I really want to do is go to graduate school. Do you send people to graduate school? Because I couldn't see how I'd be able to afford it. And most of them said, no, are you crazy? But Bell said, well, yes, actually, we have a history of doing that. We don't do it like we used to, but we do this one program. It's a Carnegie Mellon. It's the Information Networking Program. And I said, all right, that sounds pretty good. So I ended up sort of signing up for that program. And so that was, ended up coming to, that was when I first came to Pittsburgh and first came to Carnegie Mellon. And Carnegie Mellon was a school I had known, I'd read about it quite a bit, being in the realm of computer science. And so it was pretty exciting for me to be able to come here. And the Information Networking Institute is an interesting place because its whole goal was to bring together computer science, computer engineering, and business, which three things with very different languages, and have people all together in one place kind of learn to work with each other. And so it became kind of a shadow of sort of early version of the ETC for me. So I had a wonderful experience kind of out here at Carnegie Mellon. Certainly my introduction to Pittsburgh and my introduction to CMU. And the funny thing, I was here at the same time Randy Pausch was being a graduate student, but like we were in different circles, didn't really know each other. So when I graduated, that meant I got married. It was very exciting. I was my wife Naira, and we met in high school and had stayed together through college. And she'd come out with me to Pittsburgh. And so afterwards we got married, which was very exciting. And you can see here's my best friend Jeff McGinley, and I'll tell more about him a bit later. So we got married, and now we're living in New Jersey. And wait, we got married. I forgot to say this. One of the things, we were trying to plan out our honeymoon, and I don't know what we're going to do. My wife said we should go to Disney World, and I said Disney World. I've never been to Disney. I've never been to any Disney parks. I'd seen the Disney parades on TV, and I thought, man, that looks really cheesy. I don't know, and I certainly knew amusement parks. I've worked in amusement parks. My whole life growing up, I knew my way around what amusement parks were about. But she was really into it. I said, okay, sure, we can do that. I don't know if you're into it. And I had no idea what I was getting into. Just the whole notion that amusement parks as I knew them were down here, and then there was this vast gulf of quality, and the level of quality entertainment experience was just something I had never before seen or witnessed, and it was absolutely life-changing for me to be there and see that. One of the things what we saw at Disney World was this Aladdin's Magic Carpet Ride, virtual reality experience that was kind of in an early beta stage, and they were showing it in a quiet corner of Epcot Center. And it was the best looking virtual reality stuff I'd ever seen. And as part of my grad school at Carnegie Mellon, I started really getting into virtual reality. And I've been doing my whole thesis had been about virtual reality. And then here I see this, and this looks, 10, 20 times better than what we've been doing, and better than the best stuff I'd seen in the world. And I'm thinking, what are they doing that is making this happen? I can't even comprehend it. And I started asking people there, I'm like, are you guys hiring? Because this is amazing. And they're like, yeah, no, sorry. We get that all the time. I'm like, man. Anyway, so that was a meaningful experience, but ended up back in New Jersey working at the phone company. Boy, just in case you wonder what it's like working there, I don't know, I'm sure it's much better now, but back then, let me put it this way. You know the Dilbert comic? He used to work there. Not like a place like there. There, he worked for Pacific Bell, right? And yes, it was like that. And it was tough. We were forced to work on things at low quality, in crazy ways, and it was giving me stomach aches, and I was coming home every day, not very happy. And the one that really put me over was one of the big chief guys that tried to give a speech about what he loved about Bell. But let me tell you about Bell and what's so great about us. They're like, you know the Coyote and the Roadrunner? And I'm like, where is this going? He says, we're like the Coyote. And I'm like, where's this going? Because, the Coyote always catches the Roadrunner. At that point, I'm like, I need to leave this company. I need to get out of here, right? And it just so happened that I see a job posting online who knows how to program virtual reality. Yes. Someone with experience with artificial intelligence languages. Oh my God, yes. Someone who knows how to edit sound. I did a lot of Jeff. I mentioned my friend Jeff. We went to college together. We went to Rensselaer there. We had a comedy radio show we did for 4 years, so I knew all about editing sound. And someone who knew how to put together a show. And I'm like, oh my God, I can do all these things. And so I sent in my resume, and then 3 weeks later, we were moving out to Los Angeles, which was a big deal. Neither of us had been west of the Mississippi at all, and suddenly we were moving to LA to be at the VR studio. So this was a giant step for us, incredibly exciting. And I'm there, not very long, so this is a group of guys who are going to change the world with virtual reality back in 1995. And I'm there maybe 2 months, and my boss, there's me right there, there's my boss, John Snod. He comes to me one day, he says, yeah, we're going to have this guy who's going to come and stay. He's a professor. And he guess he's going to be on sabbatical or something, and he's going to kind of just hang out in the studio. And I said, yeah. And he says, well, he's going to need some help getting certain things coded up and such. And also, I think you're going to need to keep him out of trouble. And if anyone who knew Randy, this was not a trivial thing to ask. And yeah, so Randy, so you can see right here, there's me, and here's in the photo from 1995, there's Randy Pausch hiding in the back right there. And so yeah, so the two of us started having desks next to each other, and what he wanted to do, we were building these virtual reality experiences, and he was trying to study them. And so I was having to do a lot of instrumenting, trying to make sure the code would report out what people were doing. It was vast quantities of data. So it's interesting, sort of, because he was such an interesting character. I mean, he made such an impression because, we were just in there just getting things done. And it's an interesting, diverse group of people. You had programmers, you had artists, you had writers, you had people like Dave Schaefer right there, who, if people know the Star Wars movies, he built the C-3PO costume, in the Star Wars movies. So they're just people of every, animators and computer scientists all working together. And this absolutely fascinated Randy. This is why he wanted to be here, because he had seen the same thing I had. He'd seen that Aladdin's Magic Carpet, and he's like, I'm doing PhD research with the best people in the world, and you're doing something that looks better. How is that even possible? And the secret was artists and engineers together. The best PhD researchers in the world were not involving artists. And if you want something to look realistic and beautiful, and you want to capture the fall of sunlight on a waterfall, you need to involve artists. And that's what this team was doing. And this is what he wanted to study and understand. So we started working together, and that was very exciting. And I haven't been there very long, but okay, one of the first things we're going to do, we're going to code up the existing, we're going to modify the existing Aladdin's Magic Carpet experience down in Florida, which meant a trip to Florida. And they said, well, it can only be this week. And when was it? Of course, it's my first anniversary, right? And I said, well, can I bring my wife? And they said, yes. And I said, great news, honey. We're going to go to Disney World for our first anniversary. And she says, that's great. And I said, but it's not all good news. She said, what else? I said, well, there's someone else coming with us. So Randy joined us down there at Disney World, on this little anniversary trip. And of course, just as you'd expect, nothing went right. We're down there trying to reprogram this while the attraction is open, and nothing ended up working right. I ended up, having to work all night and things, and this impressed Randy to no end, right? Randy was very big on work ethic, and the notion that I would put up with this and that Naira would be tolerant of it. He was very excited about this level of passion. But it was very exciting. We got it instrumented, collected huge quantities of data, and we were able to put together a great study, one of the first early studies, because it was the first time in terms of wearing a virtual reality helmet. People had done tests with maybe 100 people or 500 people testing it. This is the first time, I believe we had 100,000 test subjects, pass through, and we had detailed data from every single one of them. Started learning about that, which is very exciting. So, Randy stayed with us at Disney, maybe about, length of a sabbatical, 8 months, a year, something like that. And boy, he got into everything. That's what he does. He visited every department of the company, and he got into every which way. And the business of keeping him out of trouble was not trivial by any means, because you might well imagine that there are plenty of Hollywood executives and creative types who are not very interested in having some college professor come in and tell them a better way to do things. So I kind of helped him navigate a lot of the political aspects of that. after he'd gone back, we stayed in touch quite a bit. We were a frequent place that, as working in the realm of virtual reality, we'd attend was a conference called SIGGRAPH, the Big Computer Graphics Conference. And I was blown away one day. Randy invites me and he said, "Can you come and give we're gonna give this course, and I'd like you to be a part of it." And I'm like, I've been doing this stuff maybe like 3 years. I barely sort of know what I'm doing, kinda. And he's like, no, it'll be great. You can come. You just got to give a talk about what you do and how you do it. I never given a talk like that before. I was scared to death. And look what we got here. This is what he puts together. It's Randy and me and Dr. Renee from Imagineering, and then people from NASA. And I'm like, I don't belong here. What are you doing? I mean, these people invented virtual reality, and then we're here. But he's like, no, you can do this. It's going to go really well. And I think he was right. He went really, really well. And it was the first time I'd done any sort of meaningful professional public speaking. And it was very much with his coaching and his help to understand how to get started in that way. Since then, I've given rather a lot of talks. I've become quite a popular speaker. You can look on the TED website. There's a TED Talk with over 1 million views that I did. And it was all, for me, it all started here with this first time that he kind of introduced me to, here's how you can give these talks and win people over. So then, Randy goes, he'd been at the University of Virginia, and he became frustrated with them and ended up coming to Carnegie Mellon University. His frustrations were, he wanted to, after his experience at Disney, seeing the interdisciplinary collaboration and the success that it led to, he wanted to get that going there, and there's a lot of resistance to it because there are a lot of walls between departments. And he said, you know what, I think I've got a better shot at Carnegie Mellon doing this. And so he ended up going there. This was a fun picture that's at the early days of the ETC that he and Don put together. And I thought it was an incredibly telling picture because this is pretty much what it was like. We talk about left brain and right brain. These two guys shared an office. It was literally, you walked into the office and there was Randy's desk and there was Don's desk. And these two guys couldn't have been more opposite, but they were both so committed to making the vision of bridging the gap between arts and technology, having that come together. They really believed in this thing. Now, I was at Disney during the time that this was starting up. And Randy was telling me about it. I thought, okay, that sounds kind of interesting. He'd visit, show me some of the student work. I'm like, wow, it looks pretty good. And at some point I said, we really could use some good interns. We've been getting interns from MIT and USC, and they're okay, but he's like, oh, I've got some great ones. I'm like, well, okay, send them over and we'll see. And he sends me these two people. He sends me Sean Patton and Reagan Heller. And I'm just like, I've never seen the college interns like this. They hit the ground running like in 5 seconds. And whereas most of these guys show up and they don't know anything, they don't know what to do, and they have this one thing they want to work on, these guys are like, what do you guys, how can I be helpful? Tell me about what you're doing. Okay, got it. What if we did this? What if we did, they knew how to gel with a team and they knew how to bring everything to bear. I've never seen students like this anywhere. And I'm, what are you doing out there? You must be doing something very, very special. And so here it is. I don't know, let's see, boy, that was, the ETC is like 15 years old now. When I ended up starting Schell Games, both of these two ended up being co-founders with me, and they're both still with the company here today. But it made a big impression on me, like just having these guys as interns. I'm like, man, Randy, you're doing something out there. And we had other interns come in the next couple of years, and it's like, oh man, there's something very special happening at the ETC. So I knew that. So then my wife and I had a baby, little Emma. There she is. So cute. And we all, when you have a kid, it gets you thinking, right? And my wife and I both grew up in the Northeast, and one of the things we started thinking about is, really, her home's going to be Burbank. You're going to have to think about that. And remember, I mentioned earlier, my buddy Jeff. Well, now my friend Jeff is getting married. So he's getting married in New Jersey, and we're slated to fly out. We're going to fly out, and I'm going to be the best man at his wedding, and that's great. And then something happens, unfortunately. It's, September 11th happens. It's a bad day, right? It's a bad day. And of course, when is the wedding? It's, I don't know, I guess it's October 2, right? It's just 3 weeks later, 3 weeks after that. And our big plan had been, hey, we're gonna fly out there, we're gonna spend a little time with Jeff. Beforehand, when Jeff and I, we grew up together in New Jersey. We lived in the woods up in New Jersey, and one of the things that we absolutely love to do is we climb up the hill, and on a really clear day, you can see, past one valley to the next, and on the distant horizon, you can see the New York skyline, just barely. If you squinted, you can make it out. And the big thing you always look for, where are the Twin Towers? There they are. And that was our plan. We're going to go up on the hill one last time, and we're going to look for those. And that plan had been changed because, well, they weren't there to look for anymore. And further, the government was saying, no, you don't need to fly, don't fly. And we said, okay, we're not supposed to fly. Well, I got to get out there for the wedding. We've always wanted to drive across country. Why not do it with a newborn? That's a great idea. That's a great idea. I guess technically by that time she was 10 months old, but still. Yeah. So we drove across the country. It was the first time we'd ever done that. Never done that before. And after the second day of driving, my wife says, "Do you think what I'm thinking?" And I said, "I don't know. What do you think?" And she says, "I'm looking around. Thinking everywhere looks so much nicer than where we live." And I said, yeah, I was kind of thinking that too. And we said, maybe LA is not for us in the long run. Maybe we want to be somewhere else. So we had a nice trip, and the wedding is great, and we head home, but we get back, and we're back in LA, and we're like, man, we're going to move, aren't we? We're going to go back. We're going to be closer to family. We'll be closer to our friends. And we won't be raising our daughter in Los Angeles, which we weren't feeling so great about. But where are we going to go? I got this weird virtual reality job at Disney. How am I going to get that out? Where the heck else could I possibly go? Well, Randy had been after me for a few years. He'd always say, he'd say, hey, you should come out. Just take 6 months off. You can come and teach a class for a semester, and then you go back to Disney. And I said, do you understand how the world works at all? my desk will be gone. They'll forget who I am. That's not going to work. But I pulled up, I said, what if we came out to Pittsburgh and stayed a bit longer than 6 months? He's like, well, how long? I'm like, I don't know, maybe, how's indefinite? How does that work? And he said, well, what would you do? And I said, well, do you need someone to teach game design? He said, we kind of do. And I said, well, think about that. And he thought about it a bit, and he and Don got back to me and said, we should talk about it. So we came out and talked about it, and it ended up working out really well. And we decided, all right, we're gonna go for this. So I came out and joined the Entertainment and Technology Center, which was a huge change. Again, giving up this entertainment life and taking it's a massive. Turns out my mother was a little confused about salaries. Turns out she had no. About that. And so it was a big change, but we were excited about it. So it came out, and it was great. Now I'm in a situation kind of working with Randy every day because he and Don are running the place. And one of the first things I started doing is co-teaching the Building Virtual Worlds class. So people remember Randy's last lecture, he talks about that quite a bit. It's a wonderful class, which ostensibly is about virtual reality and technology, but really is about teamwork and coming together as a team. And again, so this was, for me, this was very exciting to be able to be a part of this and to be able to co-teach this with Randy. And I've never seen any class where there was so much enthusiasm for a particular class or subject. This was just absolutely thrilling, and very much in the spirit of the ETC. And the whole notion of the ETC is artists, engineers, and people of all disciplines coming together to invent new kinds of experiences that people have never seen before. And so you'd think the place would be all about technology, and it's partly about technology, but it's really about how do you work with a group of people who speak completely different languages than you, right? An engineer is going to work with a musician, and an animator, and a writer, and a another engineer of some opposing discipline, and somehow all of them are going to work together to make something incredible. And this is kind of the magic of the ETC, is learning to do this, because this is not something that we learn in school, nor does it come naturally. You look at something like, how was Apple able to jump ahead with the iPhone? Because none of the other companies were making something like that. If you look at the iPhone, it's not, did it succeed because it was so technological? No, it didn't. It succeeded because it was so beautiful, right? Engineers couldn't have made anything so beautiful. Only artists could, but artists couldn't do it alone because it's got so much technology. The only way something like that happens is when you have artists and engineers willing to work together to create something neither of them could do alone. And that is so much completely the vision of the ETC, which makes it such a wonderful organization to be a part of. And we have so many wonderful traditions. One of my favorite ones that Randy started was in the Building Virtual Worlds class. We give an award to, so the students create many, many projects in that class. They do team projects, and we switch teams and switch teams and switch teams. And this group of usually 70 to 80 students over the course of a semester end up working in groups and creating over 100 virtual worlds. And some are amazing, and some are terrible. And there's a tendency among the students to want to play it safe, because like, well, I don't want to get a bad grade. And Randy was always very cognizant of that. And so we make a big deal of like, look, we'd much rather you fail spectacularly than succeed modestly, right? And to that end, every year we pick out one of the projects and give it an award that Randy called the First Penguin Award. Because penguins have a tough time, right? There's a lot of stuff in the water that wants to eat them, right? So they can't totally see. And once one penguin's in and he's cool and he's swimming around, everyone else knows it's okay to go in. That first penguin though, man, he's got to be pretty tough. So every year we give an award for the best failure, where someone tried a little too much and it crashed and burned, and then we make a big celebration of that, which is certainly a very, very rare thing to do. So I've been there doing that, teaching game design, and very exciting, kind of working with Randy and Don and the other faculty at the ETC. And then Randy, and then another thing, right? So I ended up starting Schell Games kind of on the side. Initially, it's just a small company, it's just an entity by which I could do a little consulting on the side, because coming from Disney to become a professor, like the salary kind of fell in half, and and there's no payment in the summer, and so it's like, okay, I'll do a little consulting, and that'll work out fine. And I'm like, Randy, is that going to work? And he's like, yup, that can totally work. People do it all the time. People get little companies going. I can help you get it going. We can make it work. Don't worry. And it's worked out quite well. Over the last 10 years, we grew from, it was just me, and then we had a handful of people, and then now we have over 100 folks, and that's all going really well. And I've continued to teach at the ETC. I managed to balance these things. A lot of people said it couldn't be done, but Randy said, no, there's a way. You can find a way. You just don't cross the streams. It'll be fun. Yeah. But then Randy makes a surprise announcement that he's going to be stepping down from the ETC. He wants to focus on his research a bit. And we were all a little disappointed, but the ETC was running so well that, like, okay, I can see that you might want to do that. And I just like this little video clip. So at that time, Randy and I were co-teaching the Building Virtual Worlds class. So this was there's always a celebration in the class, like a big festival and a kind of show. And we had a little surprise for Randy here where we gave him an award. And most people haven't seen this footage, so this is kind of fun. Oh, sorry. Clicking the wrong thing.
So you told us, many times, one of the things we need to watch out for, pioneers are the ones who have the arrows in their backs. And so I got one award tonight, but we have a second one for you. The Pioneer Award. Where is it? Here we go, right here. There we go. The Pioneer Award for you, Sarah Shellway, and has a matching outfit. Thank you.
moving on to research. But okay, we'd still be working with him, and that was fine. We'd still be kind of chatting and working with him. But I think I've never talked with anyone about this before, but I kind of believe that maybe he knew at some level that something maybe wasn't quite right, and that he needed to kind of step down his level of work. I suspect his body knew something was wrong. Because unfortunately, it wasn't too long after that. So my wife and I would often meet with Randy and Jay socially, and I remember very distinctly Randy and Jay were having their house renovated in typical Randy fashion. Randy he liked to engineer everything. And one thing he was incredibly proud of was his new kitchen was going to have 2 dishwashers. And he had this elaborate system by which his justification for 2 dishwashers, he said, well, first if one fails, I've got a backup. Right? That's great. And further, he just liked the idea that, yeah, you fill one up, and then you can run it, and then you just leave the dishes in there after they're cleaned, and you use that as the cabinet, and you fill the other one. Right? And so that you're forever shuttling back and forth between the clean one and the dirty one. And uniformly, men always say, that's a great idea. And women say, that is an idea. That's because men have to do the dishes. There you go. Anyway, so they were getting this renovation done. I remember they were staying at another house nearby. They rented a house while this big renovation was happening at their place in Ellsworth. And I went over to see him, and it was just, oh, we're going to get some pizza, the kids can play together. And Randy is yellow, like scary yellow. And what's going on, buddy? And he's like, oh yeah, I went to the doctor, it's kind of strange, it sort of came out of nowhere, they're checking it out, it's, it could be a number of things, I feel fine, I think it's going to be no big deal, but at that point I was, oh my God, right? I'd heard about jaundice, but to see like luminous yellow skin was very disconcerting. And it wasn't too long after that, we got word back that, it turns out it was something more serious than that. Which was very hard for all this. And I believed, I'm like, okay, yes, got it, pancreatic cancer, that's going to be a death sentence for most people. But man, Randy is a runner, and you can't count out the runner, right? He's young. If anybody can beat this, it's going to be Randy. And so, despite the grimness of the news, myself and many others are like, if anybody can beat this, it's going to be. And it was that following fall, it was a very memorable day for me. So at this point now, I've taken over the Building Virtual Worlds class, which is exciting because it's important. It's a wonderful tradition. And one of the traditions is the first day of the class. There's always kind of a pep talk to the teaching assistants because there are a lot. We have somewhere between 12 and 18 teaching assistants, depending on the year. Because you've got to have all these, you've got to have artist teaching assistants and technology and music. You have so many. And so, and that's very much how we pass culture from year to year at the ETCs, the teaching assistants, passing it down to the new students. It's very important to be able to get that pep talk. And I'm getting ready to go in and kind of say, hey guys, it's important how you behave, on and on and on. And I'm about to go in and my phone rings, and it's Randy. And he says, I need to talk to you about something. And I say, boy, can I call you back? He's like, I kind of don't have a lot of time right now. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, unfortunately, I've been diagnosed as terminal. I have maybe 6 months. Which was, I couldn't believe it. It was like beyond belief, but there it was. And if he was saying it, I was sure he'd done the research. And then I had to go and give the pep talk, right? So it was for me. It was absolutely unbelievable that he would be in this situation. Anyway, so the one thing I do want to show this picture, this mosaic that we made. It hangs today in the Entertainment Technology Center. It's right there, along with the picture. You may remember the story from the last lecture of when one of the things Randy really loved about his parents was they let him paint on the walls of his room. They were hesitant at first, but then they're like, you know what, you just go for it. And so he painted the walls, you know, there's all these kind of kid murals. And this is not a reproduction of one of those. At some point, the house was getting renovated, and they said, look, we need to take these down. So they carved them all out of the wall, and different family members took them, and they saved the rocket ship for us, which I thought was very thoughtful. So then, that, of course, people know the story of the last lecture, but I think what people don't realize is how unexpected an event that it was. The last lecture has been a tradition at Carnegie Mellon for quite some time. The notion of it would be you would get an experienced professor to come and say, if this was your last lecture, what would be the things that you would say? You know, that was the notion. And Randy didn't have time but for one more. So they asked, you know, would you consider coming back to do this? And he said, you know, I really would. I have a talk I'd like to give. And it was his talk about achieving childhood dreams. And of course, it was a big deal for all of us to attend this. But at the time, we didn't see it anymore. This is sort of, okay, this is going to be very intimate. It's just, you know, people he knows best, and he's going to kind of come and say goodbye. It's very meaningful and very touching. And for me, it ended up being this crazy, stressful nightmare, because of course I want to attend, but I'm trying to run this business at the same time. There was occasionally one runs into evil Hollywood executives, right? And there's this particularly evil one. There's a deal I've been trying to make for 2 years to make this game that my team had designed, the team was so excited about, and we really needed the project. And this executive said, well, listen, if this is going to happen, we've got to negotiate it today. And I'm like, okay, well, sure, I think we can do that. So we had a little call scheduled, which was going to be before Randy's meeting. And this guy is just, he knows I'm time boxed, and he's going to use that against me, right? And I'm like, okay, buddy, I got to go. I got to go to this other lecture. He's like, well, you know, you got to make the deal, or you're not going to make the deal. And so we ended up hanging on, and I'm like, okay, I'm barely going to make it, right? And finally, whatever, we settled on something, and I ran out the door, and I get there full. Like, it hasn't started yet. It's going to start in 2 minutes, but it's full. And I'm upset. Certainly I wanted to see him speak, but more like I'm so worried that he's going to feel that I was snubbing him, or I didn't care. Fortunately, there was an overflow video room, but of course, where is it on the other side of campus? So I was running all the way across the campus, so I was able to see it sort of through live telecast. And of course, you know, it exceeded everyone's expectations in terms of how moving it was. And then, of course, I ran back because I certainly wanted to talk to him, because it wasn't not at all clear how many more times I'd get to talk to him. And it was, I have to say, it was incredibly awkward, because what are you going to say, right? You don't know what to say. And I was probably the most awkward. I did the most awkward thing possible. I knew Randy loved gadgets, and I acquired this new folding typewriter that I liked. And I'm like, Randy, I got to show you this. And I'm showing him this folding typewriter, and he's looking at it, he's watching me, and he's like, why are you showing me this? And I said, I really don't know. But he understood. You know, he's like, no, I know. Fortunately, it wasn't the last time that I got to see him. He ended up kind of beating his prognosis by quite a bit, and ended up to being able to meet and chat a few more times. But of course, eventually there was a last time. It was very sad. But it was so exciting to watch the ascendance of the last lecture, because we all just thought, oh, this is great. He's going to come back to a little intimate thing with friends, and suddenly it's on the news, and it's blowing up, and it's a million, and then 10 million YouTube views, and then 20 million, and then the book, and this massive, massive success. So excited to be able to see him, because nothing he loved more than to be able to make a difference in someone's life. And here he was able to do it beyond his wildest dreams, I think. And one of the things people, not a lot of people know about, one of the things he became absolutely obsessed with at the end was his children were quite young at that time. And he was very worried that they wouldn't remember him. since children often don't remember much before they're 5 years old. So, of course, being Randy, he's going to engineer it, right? So he starts going to the greatest neuropsychologists in the world and saying, listen, what can I do to make my kids remember? He gets this big list of, okay, visceral experiences are a thing. Okay, so he's taking the kids out and he's riding dolphins with them, right? And of course, part of what he wanted to do was to create experiences that would outlive him. So when they're making the deal for the last lecture book, Randy ends up negotiating it. And if he could negotiate 2 dishwashers with Jay Pausch, he could negotiate anything, right? So all there's 3 or 4 different publishers bidding for the book, and so the price is just going up and up and up and up, right? And the advances going up into the millions and millions. And Disney really wants it. So Disney, Hyperion Books, they really, really want this. And so they're going to impress them, and they say, okay, well, Randy, yeah, I know we've got the terms to you. We want to do a thing. We're going to have Bob Iger, who's at that time the head of the company, still the head of the Walt Disney Company. He's going to come and he's going to talk to you about it. This, I guess, was meant to impress and intimidate Randy, which, of course, was exactly the wrong move. And Randy says, excellent, now I can tell him exactly what I want. And they're like, that's not what, duh! And, of course, Randy does tell exactly what he wants. And what he wants is, certainly there were certain financial terms, but much more important to him was he wanted some guaranteed funding for his Alice project at Carnegie Mellon to be continued. They said, done, no problem. And then there were certain other things involving charities that he wanted them to do. They're like, done, no problem. And he says, and I want you to install something at Disney World so that when my children get older and they visit, that they'll be able to remember me. And if you visit Disney World and you visit the Mad Hatter teacups and you explore the garden, quite, not, I wouldn't say hidden, but certainly not drawing much attention to itself, is this wonderful little quote from Randy that's right there. Be good at something, it makes you valuable. Have something to bring to the table, because that will make you more welcome. And that was, and that wouldn't be there if he wasn't. That wasn't Disney. Oh, we'll just do this nice thing. No, that was engineered by Randy, and it's still there today, and I'm sure it'll be there for a long, long time to come. So, I guess just to close up here a little bit. So, looking back at sort of my relationship with Randy, there's one thing that he gave me that I think was more important than anything else. When we first started working together at Disney, I was very intimidated. I'd only been there 2 months. He wanted us collecting terabytes of data from a virtual reality system that I barely understood. And I told him about this. You're asking a lot. I don't know that I can do this. And he said, you can do more than you think. And what do you know? We worked on it, and it was tricky, but we did it. We collected all the data, and it augmented the whole thing, and it totally worked. And then later, when he's like, hey, you should come do this talk at SIGGRAPH, I'm like, oh, I don't know, I can't talk to NASA and these guys. And he's like, you'll be fine, because you can do more than you think. And he was right. It went really well. It worked great. And then, coming to teach at Carnegie Mellon, I was very intimidated. And I'm like, man, can I really do I can, okay, 1 or 2 lectures, I understand. To teach a class, you've got to put together a series of 30 lectures and be an expert on the topic. And he's like, yeah, you can do more than you think. And then someone had approached me about, could you write a book about game design? We need a new one. It seemed like an interesting opportunity, but I don't know how to write a book. And I went to ask Randy, I'm like, I'm not sure, this book thing, do you think I'm the right guy for it? And he said, do you not get it yet? You can do more than you think. And I very often find, I have graduate students come to me and they're in the same situation. Like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, I don't know if I can do this. And I just bring out Randy's magic phrase. I just say, well, you can do more than you think. And son of a gun, they can. They end up doing much more than they think. And in a lot of ways, I often feel that Randy's whole life was a testament to this notion. Here's dreamy Randy Pausch looking up at his painted bedroom, when he was young. Because who would have thought that this little boy could go and become this great professor and influence thousands of people, and much beyond that. Like you look at the last lecture, and who would have thought that an intimate, goodbye to friends could end up being something that has lasting impact and has just deep meaning to millions and millions of people worldwide. And so I think it's sort of testament that all of us can do more than we think. So the thing I remember, the thing, I think of Randy all the time. I have dreams about Randy all the time. It's not unusual for him to give me advice in dreams, which is fascinating and often useful. But the thing when I think back, I'm always pleased with how much he challenged me, and I think much about how he challenged all of us. So thanks very much.
One picture on the way here.
Oh, yeah.
And slipped it into your talk.
I did.
Let me make a guess which one it was. You went down to the ETC and took a picture of the rocket ship? Was that it?
Yeah, that was it. I did not.
Just a guess.
I didn't, because I'm notoriously bad at putting together talks. I'm the guy who puts them together at the absolute last minute.
You can do more than
and I woke up in the morning and I'm like, why don't I have a picture of the rocket ship from the ETC? I'm going to stop on the way there. And of course, you can even see how hasty this picture was. You can even see, like, I guess it doesn't matter, but like, what is this? It turns out I get there, I'm like, this will be easy, I'll run in and snap the picture. Because the students have all left, they've taken all the desks out of the room. And they've piled them all in the hallway. I had to climb over all these desks. And like, some of them are still in the shot. These are legs of desks. Just sticking up here. Anyway. Yeah.
Well, so I'm curious about one thing. I was looking at some of your early pictures at Disney, especially. It looked as if it was basically all men. I assume that's no longer the case.
Well, it's a really interesting question, and this is a big question in the computer game industry in general, and in virtual reality, the world of virtual reality specifically. So it does look like almost all men. M.K. Haley, you can see she's hiding right there. She was the only, at that time, was really the only woman on the team in the studio. That did change a bit over time. I would say in the industry we're seeing it change, but it still slants very male. And for whatever reason, the virtual reality, which I went to, like the Oculus Connect conference in September, and I even snapped a picture. I got in the room and like, there are hundreds and hundreds of people in this auditorium. I look around and I'm like, there may be, there were less than 1% female in the room. So in the world of video games, it's still lower than we want. I guess it's sort of almost like the more cutting edge the technology is, the more male it slants. But I will say it's not that way everywhere. You saw some of the clips in from our studio. I would say our studio is maybe, I haven't counted in a while, I would say about 20% female, which for the game industry is higher than normal, but it's changing.
Do your games have female characters in them?
Oh, do the games have female characters? No, it's an excellent question. Some games do, some games, well, I have to think this through. It's different for different games. Whenever possible, we like to make a situation where the players can create their own characters. Right now, we've been doing a lot of games where the characters are animals and things, and so that ends up being a little less of an issue. But it's something we try and take very seriously, because one of the things that's fascinating in the world of games is there are some games that slant much more female than male, like The Sims, which was this massive mega hit. More women played that than men do. So it's different with different games.
I'm surprised and amazed the fact that the gaming industry is larger than the movie industry now.
In terms of revenues,
Yeah, revenues.
yes, in terms of the money.
When did the transition occur?
That was about 5 years ago, I think, is when it sort of crossed the brink of revenues. And it hasn't helped that with downloads cutting into DVD sales, that hasn't helped the movie industry at all. Yeah?
It's curious also about the change in demographics of who's going into the gaming industry and is that bringing new cultures in to interact. It's like bringing...
It's definitely opening up more and more. We're seeing more women. We're seeing more people from different nationalities and ethnicities. One of the it still slants very white, which I can't say I fully understand, but one of the great things that's happening now is because of direct downloads. You know, it used to be you want to put a game in the game store, you've got to go through all these hoops. You've got to, you're not doing that for less than $500,000, right? But now you want to put a game in the Apple store, like, you need $100 on a phone, and you can do that. And so that's opened things up widely. I think it's going to continue to become more and more diverse.
You mentioned that Schell Games' mission is to be transformational gaming. I use that term, I think. Carnegie Mellon has just announced a strategic planning initiative where, and the central theme is transformation.
I noticed that.
I'm sure you're aware of that. Can you say more about what unique contribution to the project of transforming our world and our culture can games make, and why are games such an important ingredient in the task of remaking a better world?
Is this all philosophical?
Of course.
What do you anything to do with that?
All questions are philosophical. I don't know, is that true? It sounds yeah, so the reason we use the phrase transformational games as opposed to just educational games is because we found that we were doing games, we were certainly doing entertainment games, and then we were doing games that were like, straight up educational games. But then we're doing these other games, like that HIV game that was mentioned there. Its goal, so the notion of that game is that if you look at HIV in America, it concentrates in big cities, and if you zoom in, it concentrates in inner cities. And then if you zoom in, again, one of the things that's surprising, young teenagers are a huge part of the problem, which is counterintuitive to most people, but it's true, because young teenagers are ignorant of safe sexual practice, and they are easily taken advantage of by older friends. And so the thought was, could the right game at the right time help them make better decisions as they move forward? And not merely by giving them facts, but by looking at what would it really, why do these young teenagers make these bad mistakes? And like a lot of research has been done on that. And so we took the research, which had this long list of there are 7 things that these teenagers aren't good at, that if they were good at, they would make better decisions. And we tried to make a game that would instill those changes. Things like thinking about your future. It's been shown that if you're a future-oriented person, you make safer choices as a teenager than if you don't really think about the future. So the game does things like, it starts out by saying, hey, before we get started, when you're 25, what kind of job do you think you'll have? What kind of relationships are you going to have in your life? What kind of car are you going to drive? And it asks all those questions, just getting the student to kind of think ahead about that. And then the game says, interesting, thanks for giving us all that information. We know somebody who had exactly those same dreams. Oh, but their life didn't go too well. Let me show you what happened. And then we show, this person ended up in a really rough life. And they say, well, we're going to lay out their timeline, and you're going to get to go and relive it with them. And then the way you play the game is you go into all the same situations they went into. But it's not so easy as just make the goody-goody choice. You have to go down the bad road with them, because you can't unlock the good choice until you live the bad road with them and explored and seen what it's like. And it works really well because, and the things you have to do as part of that, you have to look for, it trains you hey, you're at the party. What are some things here that might look a little suspicious? Because that's another thing. Young kids that get into these situations, they don't do that like, is there anything dangerous here? They don't take that moment. And so this gets them in practice, like, oh, that guy getting in the car, he does look kind of drunk, right? And wait a minute, what are those guys smoking? Right, all that.
Men in black scene.
Yeah, right. Anyway, so one of the things that's really unique about games is that they're engaging and they are interactive. And when you interact with things, sometimes it can make changes in you. So we started getting into this notion of transformational games because even when we design a simple educational game, we always find ourselves asking the question, what is the change we're trying to make in the player? I think games have, because games are immersive and interactive and engaging and personalized and customized, they can fit a very unique place in the sort of the educational system. And particularly the business of tablets now. They're going to take over textbooks. Like, I venture to say 10 years from now, I don't know if we're going to have textbooks. Because why would you? Why would you carry around, like, why do all the children need to be Quasimodo with this giant pack of books when they can have them all, and much better with video and interactive simulations on a tablet, and games are going to be a natural part of that. Yeah?
So I totally understand the idea and the transformational capacity of gaming and the educational idea of it. How do you get those games to be played instead of World of Warcraft or Assassin's Creed, or in addition to that?
No, it's a really good question. One of the answers is make them that good, right? Because historically, a lot of educational games are just not very good, right? They're just poorly named. They're not very interesting. We're about to launch a group of games now. We're working with this group, Amplify Learning, out of New York City. And their vision fundamentally is they want to take the textbook industry. Because they're looking at the textbook manufacturers who don't want to move into digital. They just don't. Just like the record companies, they didn't want to move into digital. Like, we'll make less money. They put a toe in the water, but they don't really go for it. These guys want to go for it in a big way, and they're spending just a huge amount of money making really high-end games that are sort of the look and the quality of top-end games, but that are engaging, but that have real vitamins and substance in them. So that's one way, is you make them that good. But then another point is you put them, like, because you can think about, okay, I'd like to replace more of the entertainment games with more of the educational games. But sure, why not replace the boring homework that is just kind of rotting children's brains half the time with something that engages them and holds them and gives them feedback about, because you think about a kid doing math homework. Right? Homework is a really, really unique opportunity. Because, okay, you've got to solve this, 3x plus 9. You've got to figure it out. There's this brief moment there. I'm not super excited about filling out these equations, but I got to do it, so I'm doing it. All right, so what does x equal? Does it equal this? Does it equal that? For the sake of this, there's this moment. I got nothing for you. Do 20 more of these.
Unless their parent is helping them.
But if you're lucky, you've got a parent there with you, who's like, yeah, hey, no, that's right, and the parent understands how to do algebra, right? And the parent is right there with them, but not everybody has that luxury, right? When you take that stuff and you make that interactive, where it says, hey, good job, X was 3, or no, actually, X was not 3, let's talk about, try this again, this is what was wrong. Taking advantage of that moment. Anyway, so I think there's going to be a lot of ways that games are going to start to be a part of the educational process. Yeah?
Do you think they would help politicians?
Well, games help politicians. It's an interesting question.
Thinking about the future and all that.
Yeah, no, and it's a thing that has come up in a few different ways. One is the notion of being able to create rich simulations of so for example, a guy named Ben Sawyer created this thing called Virtual U for university administrators who have to plan budgets. Planning a budget for universities is really hard, and you make certain choices, and you're like, is this right, is this wrong? You don't find out until years later. So he created a simulation that lets them experiment. Well, what if we do put more money into athletics? And what if we do put more money, into our science department? And they get to see and think about that. So games and simulations can be really helpful for decision making. I started a company actually with a former ETC student all about using games and simulations to train firefighters. because it let them experience things they don't normally deal with. And we found that to be really interesting and helpful. I think we're going to see in more and more places.
I think from my teaching experience, and you have mentioned having educators in your team.
Yes.
The critical issue is the cognitive dissonance that is created that makes them have to have an insight.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the key to the whole thing, and an educator who knows how to do that
Yes.
would help.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm here.
Excellent. Well, one of the things we do with every one of our projects is we come up with little slogans. Like, what is this project really about? One of the ones right now is engineering insight.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's absolutely.
It's always the what if question.
Yes.
It's always the what if.
There's a thing Confucius said that I always liked. He said a good educator does not. He said every truth has four corners, but an educator does not show you all four corners. An educator, a good teacher, gives you one and leaves it to you to find the other three. And right, and that is so much the art of it. So that's part of the reason we, in terms of creating these things really well, it's not enough to just have the expertise and to have the engineering. You have to have that art of being an excellent teacher. And that's one of the things we try and do. What does the excellent teacher do? Can we find ways to weave that into? And more, people often think of these educational needs as a replacement for a teacher. But when we started working with the firefighters, we're going in talking to the FDNY guys. Hey, we want to make these computer game simulations to help you guys out. And these FDNY guys, yeah, what do you know about it? What, you're going to come in, you're going to tell these guys how to save lives? College boy? And I'm like, oh, well, we're just trying to help here. Right? These guys come in with this software all the time. Doesn't help, doesn't do a damn bit of good. Right? So we're like, okay, well, what are your problems? What do you need? And they said, well, I'll tell you what we need. We need a way to get these guys to pay attention. You know who doesn't want to sit in a class and listen to a lecture? Firefighters. Right? Because you think about that for a minute. They signed up to run around and crash through things with an axe and save lives. They don't want to sit and take notes. Right? So what the good instructors, the good firefighting instructors do is they paint these vivid scenarios. Right? Okay, there's been a call. There's an abandoned warehouse, and it's 3 in the morning, and there two trucks have come in, and you're on the south side, and you're on the north side, right? And there's smoke. What do you do? Right? And he starts kind of involving them, right? And he says, and I try and do that, but he said, if you could give us something that enhanced that, and it led us to this notion of, you think of it like the game Dungeons and Dragons, where there's a dungeon master. What if we could make the teacher the dungeon master? And so we created an interface that was that very thing, where the students are all at consoles going through the situation, and then the instructor has this console where he can see what everybody is doing, and he can bring in just the right challenges and just the right things at just the right time, and he can pause it. And that's one of the changes I think we're going to see is once, because we have technologies in the schools, but we don't have ubiquitous portable network technology. Once every student and the teacher have the same stuff and they're all linked into the same simulation, then suddenly the simulation isn't an alternative to the narrative. It's now an enhancement of the whole thing. And that's one of the things I'm really excited about. I think that's a transformation to see over the next 10 to 20 years. Time for one more, maybe? Yeah, in the back.
I'm interested, maybe you've already said this sort of, but I'm interested in the details of, Randy said he had to do a little more work on Alice so that someone else could take it over. And do you have any more details about exactly what he was able to do or not able to do before he died?
Yeah, sure. So he made sure he transferred everything over. Wanda Dan is running the Alice research group right now. You go to alice.org and see all the updates about what they've been doing. I mean, they've gotten the system into thousands of schools. It's used kind of quite broadly and quite widely. One of the challenges they have right now is the technological landscape is changing, and they're having a little trouble keeping up with it. Like, they're not really ready for tablets and phones and all those things, but they're looking at making some of those transitions. You mentioned Steve Siebold. He's been in electronic arts, and they've been quite helpful at donating a lot of resources. that game, The Sims, I mentioned, like it has thousands of people and characters, and they donated all the assets from the early versions to be integrated into Alice. So Alice is a very powerful, robust system that's used at high schools and colleges widely, and Alice seems to like they're going to continue to grow and continue to do more. But you can go to alice.org and there's lots of information about it.
You had mentioned that textbooks have become dinosaurs of erudition. In other words, that they're going to be a thing of the past.
Yeah.
What's going to be the role for teachers and professors? You know, you've moved into primarily the business world, where you keep a foot in the ETC.
Yeah.
What's the role, whether you go back to the time of Confucius or
Well,
ahead
I
in
think
the future, for a teacher or professor?
I think
in this world?
things go in circles. There was a time when teachers served much more as coaches. When the industrial age showed up, we had this idea that we should run schools like we run factories. And so we started doing that. We started getting larger classrooms and everybody do the same thing and everyone learned to sit still and everyone learned to take orders, which makes sense if you're all going to be factory workers. But now that we don't do factories anymore, that's making less sense. Not to mention the fact that now we have the internet has become this incredible tool for self-education, which is a wonderful thing. The schools aren't quite in step with that yet. I think the biggest change that we're going to see is a change from teachers being kind of just, sort of broadcasters of standardized information to becoming coaches who help you customize your education. Because I think even though there's a huge focus at the moment on we need to standardize, not realizing that standardized education only leads to standardized students. And who succeeds in the world, the standardized student or the customized student? The person who succeeds is the person who's best in the world at one particular thing. And that involves customizing one's education. And I think people are going to be wising up to that, and that the role of teachers is going to need to be much more a role of how can I help you find exactly what you want. The challenge is how do you have the time to do that? And the hope is that hopefully technology can be one of the tools that teachers can use to help customize education for students.
Thank you, Jeff.